Hey guys, here to get into one of my all-time favorite musicians, Wayne Shorter. And I got into him by way of his stuff with Miles Davis, which is just some of the most genius stuff ever. So I ventured into all of his solo albums, and he hits a pretty similar level of great, honestly, throughout quite a few of his albums. I love this man. Very adventurous, very perceptive, always willing to just gain more as he goes, as he meets all these other legendary musicians. He's always welcome. Like at times, kind of just like just kind of taking all the influence and then just let the influence. Particularly as like a disciple of John Coltrane and Miles Davis. So we got Introducing Wayne Shorter in 1960. This is this is a pretty all right debut album. Honestly, there's some pretty good moments here, like Mac the Knife. Although it's pretty still next to a lot of other energy that's going on, like it's the like 50s, like from Sonny Rollins especially. But I do like some of the stuff here, ultimately. But it's the same thing with the album Wayne's Moments in 1962, which is just a little repetitive, but it's still pretty good to listen to once or twice. Kind of a different kind of lineup too. So this is like a different shade of Wayne Shorter altogether. But of course, this is like before he was even working with Miles Davis too much. So this is very young. I feel like Wayne Shorter really took off into his own when we get to Night Dreamer in 1964, which just kind of takes you away from all that weird bop and harmonies. Now we're just kind of getting. Again, not quite adventurous, but just very dreamy. And I think I love the dreamy energy of the self-titled track, particularly. That's what drives this album. And then I like the song Apocalypse, because that kind of feels like a foreshadow to a lot of what's going on in the albums Juju and Speak No Evil, which is, that's his prime era. Something kind of menacing about the sound, ultimately. But, this is certainly a really great backing band. This is where he kind of found this great... which features my favorite drummer of all time, Elvin Jones, which is, he mostly did stuff with all the best stuff with John Coltrane. This is great. So is McCoy Tyner on the piano. Geniuses. Lee Morgan on the trumpet. Some of the best jazz musicians in the 60s. There's so many. It's an ocean of its own entirely. Juju in 1965. And this is my favorite, certainly my favorite Wayne Shorter album. Speaking of Evil comes very close, but this is ultimately my favorite one. And this is just Wayne Shorter just being quite a great leader. And it feels like he really finds the confidence to just really soar into something entirely of his own. I bet the album Love Supreme came out and changed his life so much that he kind of just, this literally is like an influence of the aftermath of how transcendent he felt after listening to that album in particular. Like the song like Deluge. You got like a lot of the energy. Like Elvin Jones on the drums is fresh off of it, as well as McCoy Tyner. Deluge just has this cool sound. And Mahjong is just like, it really has a mood to it that feels like something of a cleansing a grounded spiritual cleansing has been met. And it's a really beautiful feeling. And House of Jade's just really groovy, and it just kind of has all these blues going into it. The energy's here. It's just so great. And I really love the songs like Yes or No and 12 More Bars Again, which are just kind of more like loose, laid back kind of songs, but they hit in such a perfectly entertaining way that I'm just endlessly fascinated by the way I feel when I listen to these songs. I love that. Again, Tyner on Jones. Golly, the dream team right there. The piano work is just as great as the stuff with John Coltrane. Elvin Jones is a little more subtle, a little more laid back here than he has with John Coltrane. But still great drumming all the same. I love the blues, particularly like songs like 12 More Bars to Go. It's just really laid back. It just feels like Wayne Shorter is a very timeless foundation. A lot of the jazz artists were doing in the 60s. They were thinking very intuitive. And there's so much charm going on here. Again, the title track is just Juju itself. It just really does feel like it's a foundation laid out by John Coltrane. In a way that all these lines just kind of play out along with the piano solos. Just really a style entirely of its own. You feel like Wayne Shorter is just really going big here. Like Deluge. There's something really awesome in this sound. It's crazy. I really love this sound entirely. Honestly, it also feels like a lot of influence from like the era of like Giant stuff. So this is like a more relaxed shade of Coltrane than we were getting on the more intense ones. But then you just got all these other ballads going on. It kind of feels like also a little bit of a foreshadow of what Miles Davis was kind of doing in 1967 and 68, which was just getting very moody before he was going to go jazz fusion completely with a silent way forward. But you kind of hear, especially the album Nefertiti, very moody. That was a very moody album Miles Davis released in 1968. I think some songs like just like Fall and the self-titled track, just the mood that they created, it's very moody, like there's something very wrong inside, but Wayne Shorter kind of captures this the way that like he's like kind of lifted above these kind of wrong feelings, and he just it takes in that Coltrane influence as well. It's like I just feel great, so I want to express that really bad. Mahjong is just like it's very breathtaking. There's something really fascinating about this entire sound, very groovy ultimately. There's so many points here that just really feel like it's timeless. Again, another genius is like Herbie Hancock. It feels a little bit like some Herbie Hancock stuff Herbie Hancock was laying out in the mid '60s. And then yeah, it's a great album. And then you got Speak No Evil in 1966. That's my second favorite album he made, and it feels like, I mean, golly, it's just cool. Everything about this just feels cool. The self-titled track, Infinite Eyes, just has so much heart of gold to it. It's so lovely. Dance Catararevo is just so float. It feels like you're floating down a river endlessly. It's what a lot of jazz does. I think jazz associating jazz with the river a lot. More than ever. Wildflower just has all this like tension living inside of it. It just feels like all these highlights are coming through. I mean, just, yeah. I mean, you got all these just, yeah, Herbie Hancock playing piano here. So this is like, yeah, some of that's going on. It feels like some of the Miles Davis work going on in 1966, 67. It's Miles era as well. Freddie Hubbard. Yeah, awesome stuff on the trumpet. And again, Elvin Jones on the drums. It's so hard to beat that. We also have another album made in 1966, All Seeing Eye, which is, yeah, I know it's a classic, but that one has not grabbed me yet. I need to listen to this a little more because it feels like it's very over the top in a way that just doesn't really feel as cool as what he did laid out the previous two albums. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, I don't believe Elvin Jones is on the drum. Yeah, you got a new drummer, Joe Chambers. Still got Herbie Hancock though, and ultimately, I feel like his solo stuff's a little more interesting at this point. It feels like there's just not too much going on here that really grabs me personally. But you got 1967 Adam's Apple. That's just waiting short of just playing the blues some more. Just getting really dense into everything. That's awesome. Yeah, it kind of features more of what Miles Davis is doing too, influence. But it's ultimately, I always want to listen to Miles Davis at this point. You know, I want to get straight to the Nefertiti sessions. I'm eager for that one. Schizophrenia in 1969, and this is just Wayne Shorter just kind of chilling, just kind of continuing like a more laid back foundation. A lot of what he's doing on Juju and Speak No Evil. And it just kind of feels like songs like Kryptonite kind of feature Wayne Shorter just kind of going beyond the limits, really. It just feels like there's just something really lovely about Infinite Eyes and Miyako. It feels like, wow, there's some awesome stuff going on here. But it's pretty good. But I still would rather listen to Long John Coltrane because it feels like a slightly less interesting take on the Long John Coltrane story. He got Supernova in 1970, and that was just really interesting in its improvisation. There's a lot less the solos here I love. Like, you feel like a lot of it's just gone very over the top. Like, you know, it's just taking a lot of influence from guys like Feio Sanders. And I don't know, sometimes Wayne Shorter over the top is not as great as John Coltrane being over the top. I think I like Wayne Shorter best when he's being a little more like a laid back kind of feeling. You know, the grounded maximalism as opposed to just plain maximalism. But still, you got like Chick Corea going on here. Odyssey of Iska in 1971. Yeah, that one just features some insanity in its own way, but it's not one of my. It doesn't really speak to me. It doesn't really do a lot for me. I don't really care for this lineup too much. I don't hear much interesting going on, really. Yeah, Second Genesis in 1974. That was pretty good. I like that one a lot more as far as the 70s stuff. You got Art Blakey on the drums. That's a really nice surprise. But yeah, just Wayne Shorter just going through all these songs. Like, I didn't know what time it was. You got, all this interesting lineup. I don't think I'm too familiar with the pianist or the bassist. But it's still pretty interesting all the same. I didn't really like another one he did in 1974 called Moto Grosso Feio. That was just a little bit too sappy, I think. It's a little cheesy. Doesn't really feel like the best stuff he was doing in the 60s, honestly. Chick Corea's on it. That's what the best part. Native Dancer in 1975. That one's just a weird one because, you got Milton Nascimento feature on here, who I'm about to talk about. So now he's becoming literally one of my favorite genius musicians of all time. Genius. Literally. So good. But yeah, Milton Nascimento kind of lends a voice here. It's very interesting to hear him collaborate. But honestly, I get way more jazzed up about just the act of listening to Milton Nascimento. Still, yeah. This is some pretty interesting stuff. Just everything about it's pretty fascinating. Soothsayer in 1979. That was the album Wayne Shorter recorded back in 1965 and had left in the candle for such a long time. But yeah, it's actually one of my most interesting sounds he did. It's a really interesting late 70s kind of sound. He had all these interesting songs, like Lady Day and Big Push. They just kind of throw out like a bit of a continuing forward foundation of what Juju and Speak No Evil laid out, which is just, all the band members, like, McCoy Tyner's back. Of course, well, they're just that we were in the 60s, obviously. But it's interesting, released in 1979. But yeah, we got all that energy kind of hopping for like one more bit of a rendezvous. I need to listen to this more. I've only heard this a few times, but it does hit in a pretty good level. Etcetea in 1980. Yeah, that one's Another one that I think he did a lot of this work in 1965 around the Juju sessions. And I can see why these didn't make the cut because, I mean, they're kind of, it's not just like an okay standalone. It's certainly like an intense B side. And I haven't worn Juju or Speak No Evil out enough to really say that I want to hear anything more than what those albums present because those really are the best of those sessions. But then you have Atlantis in 1985. Oh wow! I mean, I don't really care for this because I think he was actually starting to take influence from a lot of the Kenny G influence of the 80s and 90s, and I gotta say, I do not like Kenny G. No, he is cheesy. He is the cheesy end of jazz that makes all that intense jazz worth it. It's like it needs to be something. Like I mean, that's the other end of it right there. It's too syrupy, sappy, whatever you want to call it. But I do enjoy everything else kind of going on around it. But some of the Navigators a little interesting in 1987 because we're in the 80s and it feels very drug infused. While the bass is taking a lot of influence from like the Peter Gabriel, Kate Bush levels of Sponge. Just that's pretty funny to hear. But I enjoy the synth pop energy all the same. And you got Joy Ryder in 1989. And this one just leaves you just bleeding, just with like, what in the world is this energy? But that's Herbie Hancock. He's kind of laying it all out. It's pretty good. Yeah, and you get a couple of singers on this album too. That's pretty good. But still not one of my all-time favorites. But it's probably the best thing he did of the 80s. For that's worth. You got High Life in 1995. Yeah, a lot of synthesizer energy going on here. That's bizarre. It's interesting to hear a jazz artist just still going in the 90s. It's like very few did. Feio Sanders had an album that was collaborated with Sony Shrek in 1991 called Ask the Ages, which I'm not listening to that. But yeah, you got Algeria in 2003. And yeah, it's just kind of taking in some work. That's what he's already done, and yeah, it's pretty much in there. But that's Wayne Shorter. I think it's just fun to go into the deep musicians that worked with Miles Davis and John Coltrane because it seems like about 20 or 25 of them were as great. And Wayne Shorter is one of those. Like all these angels who came around and just made life-changingly great music. That's Wayne Shorter, though. Highly recommend listening to, really, to anybody. He's highly recommended. Although, of course, this kind of builds up to just a lot of like what's going on with like his stuff in the side way. But of course, he's like kind of think in his solo work finding a bit of restraint, but in the process, he ends up being another bit of like a John Coltrane-esque influence, where it's just a powerhouse. It's awesome. That's Wayne Shorter.